So what we've got today is 4 great speakers for you. First up, we have Simon Dale from Nottingham City Council, talking about how data is being used in the City Council. We've got Barclay Gould from Transhumanity, bringing to life their Traffease product, talking about how that is an AI-based solution that's enabling better decision-making in transport networks. Martin Bell's going to talk us through the journey TfGM have been on from their bus franchising program of work. And Tony Melvin from Simvert is going to bring to life a bit more around what a data program looks like and how you can be successful for it, and share some learnings he's had on the path working with Martin at TfGM and other projects we've done here at Simvert. So we're really excited about it, really hoping that you guys get some real value from this. And just again, thank you for joining. The presenters, will come on and talk through their slots. There is a Q&A option for you to kind of throw questions in. If we can answer those as we go, then we will, but I think it might be sensible to leave those to the end. Any questions we don't get to cover, we will follow up on. So we'll get a record of that and we'll come back to the group with the questions and the answers so everyone can get some insights. But yeah, thank you very much. That's probably enough from me. I will hand over to Simon, our first speaker. So yeah, thank you, Simon. Let's get you on and me off. So I will bring you on so everyone can see you, and then you can share your screen as and when you are ready.
Okay, let's just use the tech. There we go. Okay. Yes, hi. As just stated, I'm Simon Dale. I work for Nottingham City Council. I'm the technical lead for data collection in transport strategy. And what I've been asked to talk about here today is actually our data platform scheme, for which I am the lead project officer. So the data platform scheme is part of our FTZ programme, Future Transport Zone, which we successfully bid for. And there were 3 schemes: mobility as a service, e-mobility hubs, and obviously the data platform itself. So the first slide is just an overview of the various nuts and bolts of the data platform. And it's centered around a real-time traffic monitoring network utilising Vivasti traffic sensors. We've also put in a number of real-time air quality monitors to complement that. A smart junction which uses the Vivasti sensors as above ground detection to see if it can improve the control of the junction. I'm not actually going to talk about that today because I haven't got time. And then there's various spin-offs such as the accident near miss monitoring trial. So we're trying to perfect the surrogate safety measures that could tell us what the crash risk is at any given location based on existing data from the real-time traffic sensors. And then on the right-hand side of the screen is obviously a number of stakeholders that are interested in this. And then in the big red circle is the Future Transport Zone Real-Time Data Hub, which is something we're procuring to ingest all this data and existing transport data we already have, much of it which is real time. So that's the data platform scheme. So I suspect a lot of the attendees here will be familiar with Vivasti sensors. We've got a picture up there of the right on the right of what they are. We've now got 275 of them across the city, and they deliver real-time 24/7 data on traffic counts and average journey time split by mode. So probably the data platform's unique selling point, because obviously, Vivasti sensors are almost industry standard now. A lot of local authorities have got a fair few of them and they're using them. But what we're actually trying to do as part of this Future Transport Zone funded scheme was to create a network of them covering all of our major radial and orbital routes in Greater Nottingham. And then that provides the opportunity to calculate multiple key area-wide transport indicators. So that's a map of the network. We've got 95 segments covering 14 radial and 5 orbital routes. Generally, these segments are fairly long because obviously the finer grained your network, the more expensive the scheme will be. But the nodes are generally located at points where congestion occurs and or there is a significant change in traffic. This is the air quality sensors that we selected along with some complementary weather stations. One of the interesting things we're looking at now is to explore using AI to identify correlations between key explanatory factors relating to air quality. So things that might be fairly opaque, things like street morphology. So we're pairing it up with our digital twin of the city, weather conditions from the weather stations, and also the existing Met Office data that we have. And then obviously you've got data generated from the traffic sensors, such as traffic volume, average delay, that sort of thing. And so this is a bit of a segue into Traffease, which will be in a presentation coming up, which we partnered with Loughborough University to investigate initially as a real-time, as a natural language interface for our data hub, which I'll say a bit more about in a minute. But also because it's AI, it'll have the capacity, hopefully, to sort of link together multiple correlations to give us a bit more of an insight. So the real-time data hub, and this is an important slide which I want to concentrate on, was the bit in red on the first slide I showed you. So this like pulls everything together. So it's an IT solution for receiving, storing, summarizing real-time transport data. And then I've listed the data types, which I've already largely talked about. One of the key things about the data hub is when you've got large amounts of area-wide data, manual cleaning of the data becomes largely impractical. So this data hub, one of its key functions will be to detect abnormal or missing data and automatically patch it. And I initially started in this project, I thought it would be a wood-like, but I now think that this data hub, to realise the vision of the data platform scheme, is a must-have. And one of the interesting things about this is that, looking at existing data hubs, it's the interface that always, I feel, is limited. So we've specified in our tender for this that we want 3 levels of access: data expert users like myself or people in my team, a public-facing website to provide interesting insights for the public. But then that number 2, the middle one, the professional stakeholders, are particularly important. So these are people who might be more senior to me that at the moment have to come to data professionals to get the sort of insights they need. The idea is to produce a dashboard which is specifically tailored for them to get what they need without the need for coming to me. And then the 4th one I've got down there is obviously what's not in our tender is a natural language interface, and that would obviously double down on this idea of making data more accessible for non-data expert users. So the metrics that will be in there be classified traffic counts and for any segment, journey times for any segment, annual average daily traffic for any segment, and then things like delay per vehicle mile by segment route or area wide, network wide vehicle miles, active travel indices, all of which I'll talk about in a bit. So just going to whiz through now very quickly some key indicators that should be available at the touch of the button from the data platform. So obviously you've got segment level data. This is just a basic chart showing data from the vivacity sensors lining up journey times and traffic counts. This should be available for all of the segments on our network. Then you've got active travel monitoring, which is a big plus point for vivacity type sensors, so above ground video analysis sensors, because you can pick up pedestrians and cyclists pretty well, and you can then sort of obviously look at the vehicle split by vehicle class, the mode split. This is again another example lining up average delay and NO2 spikes across across time periods, and this illustrates the need for a more in-depth analysis of this sort of thing, because obviously sometimes they line up but sometimes they don't. So obviously there's other explanatory variables which we would hope to be able to the AI to be able to tell us about. And then you've got the area-wide transport indicators from the Vivacity traffic sensor data. So you've got congestion metrics like average delay per vehicle mile and journey time variability measures, area-wide traffic mileage, and then active travel monitoring. So you can have quite create indexes in real time of activity based on a lot of data points. And then there's the tantalising prospect of being able to monitor mode share in real time, which I haven't really got time to go into here, but it's definitely an area of research we're interested in. So I'm running out of time, so I'm just going to whiz through this. Obviously, you can look at the these in more detail, but here we've got area-wide traffic mileage, calculated for 5 segments on our network. This was a demonstrator of what could be achieved network wide once we had the data hub up and running and it was automated. Average journey times, again, as I talked about. Active travel measures, so the indices, that's an example of the cycling index and the pedestrian index, and you can see the sort of events that drive peaks and troughs. One of the things you have to be careful of, and I'm running out of time, I've only got a couple of slides, is the distribution of sensors, because obviously they won't be distributed necessarily evenly across your network. So when you select the sensors that you're going to use in these indices, they need to be representative of your area. So, you know, you can't have loads around the university and very few on the other side of the city where there's no students, because you'll get a misleading index. So just to conclude, I certainly believe this is a sea change in the way we collect and analyse key transport data, and we're only just beginning to appreciate the new intelligence opportunities that this approach may provide beyond traditional metrics. We believe that the data platform scheme will demonstrate a joined-up solution to providing transport monitoring and evaluation for Nottingham and possibly for other cities and regions. But I think the key point is that we're still in the process of implementing it, and we need to complete the scheme to prove that the approach provides accurate data, and it's practical to manage and cost effective. Bit over time, but not too much. Thank you.
Thanks, Simon. That was really insightful. I think, and actually perfectly on time. There are just a couple of questions. One was a generic question, I think, that applies to everybody. Can the slides be shared afterwards? I guess Simon, you're first on. I don't know if you're okay to share your slides after, but I'm
happy to share my slides. Yeah.
Perfect. So we will double check that with the other presenters and be able to share slides. There was a specific question that came in around. I'll just read it out. Actually, it's easier. Will your AADT be based on your sensors or the DFT data? Someone else is doing an AADT vehicle per mileage using their sensors.
The AADTs on the hub will be based on our sensors, yes. Is a straightforward answer to that. Yes, I mean a lot of the DFT AADTs are estimated based on fairly sparse counts, whereas the AADTs from the sensors for each of those segments will be based on real observed data.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you very much. Let's move. So Barclay is on next. Let's go to Barclay from Transhumanity to learn more about kind of Traffease, and then if more questions come through, we can pick them up at the end, Simon, if that's okay. Thank you. Barclay, let's bring yourself on. Brilliant. I will disappear.
Brilliant. Thanks, Tom. Hi, everyone. So let me just share my screen first of all. Okay, can everyone see that okay? Yep.
Yeah.
Excellent. So on the slide just explained, so I'm in late stand-in for Dr. Hightower, who is director of our Transhumanity, which is a spin-out from Loughborough University. It was spun out at the beginning of this year. So myself, as Tom kindly mentioned, I'm Barclay Gold. I'm CTO of Transhumanity. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit through today in terms of what Traffease is, what it does. First of all, a few slides, and then I actually show a bit of a demo as well. So I'll kind of kick off and take you through that essentially. So, okay, so what's Traffease? What does it do? So Simon kind of alluded to and talked about. So we've been working together with Simon, Nottingham, and also TFGM Manchester, looking at how essentially we can give more accessible access to data. So we're getting lots more and more different sources of data, high quality data coming in the transport industry from a variety of different sources, like the vivacity sensors that Simon mentioned, but across air sense sensors, lots of different data sensors. And what's useful about Traffease is that we can look across all of those different data sources and provide a really quite intuitive interface, natural language interface for non-experts, but also to help with productivity of data experts as well. So as Simon mentioned, he briefly mentioned in terms of 3 different interface types. And this natural language interface would be a kind of addition to those. We sit within that space where we naturally help the senior stakeholders you mentioned having kind of direct access to data without having to have that more detailed expertise or go through a data expert. So we're really kind of having that direct access, and that really helps, I suppose, the productivity and that kind of feedback loop in terms of looking at data, getting value from it and extracting from it. So it's really kind of helping that feedback loop become quicker, but also the fact we're integrated and we look across a variety of providers as well. So Traffease would sit in the middle here, and essentially what we do is we're a multi-agentic AI solution. So you might have heard a little bit about this. I suppose it's a newer technique in terms of AI, where essentially what we have is a number of different AI agents within the tool. Some of these might be specific to, for instance, generating and retrieving a specific type of data from databases, or working with specific AI with APIs to connect and retrieve data. There also might be some planning and orchestration agents. So generally they work in concert together. Each of them's got quite a specialist role. You can almost think of it like a broader data team, as it were, working kind of in concert together. So there's a number of these different agents that we employ, and how they combine together, we end up kind of providing that kind of easier, intuitive access to the underlying data and also analysis on top of that. So what data do we look at? We look at, for instance, the traffic counters, so the vivacity data sensors that Simon mentioned earlier, as well as in the case of Manchester, for instance, ATC sensors, so we can look across both. We're not restricted to one type, for instance. Together with also across the road network, we can pull in points of interest. And so when we start, as Simon briefly mentioned as well, looking at correlations between traffic flows and data, we can start to pull in other data and seeing the impacts of those. So we've also got points of interest, weather data, for things like air quality, for instance, those air sense data that Simon mentioned earlier. So we can begin to look at spikes of traffic and how that might impact air quality, together with other weather data and how that affects it as well. And then other things like roadworks and road incidents we can pull in as well. And because we use this agentic AI approach, it's really quite different in terms of how quick we can integrate different data sources. So we have a very modular architecture where we can plug in a different data source. So say it might be a database, it might be an API, it might just be simple CSVs or XML files. And as I'll show a little bit shortly, it's then quite easy to integrate and extract the value from that data and do analysis on top of that using the kind of the AI agents. So if I go across and I'll log in and I'll run through a quick demo of the tool. So just checking how we're doing for time. So if I've got a chat interface on the left, the map on the right, I can, let me see, for instance, so if I go, please provide car traffic at Manchester, Victoria on 30th July. Let's do, excuse my typing, live typing. So what I'll do is I'll go off and start fetching that data. We've got reference logs, which will show exactly what it's doing. So the idea here is we're making sure the AI is being transparent, the user's in full control and understands where it's retrieving data from, what sources. So it's come back and said, okay, so at that location, I found this sensor. They were this many of cars heading into city centre, this many heading out the city centre. So for instance, we can view in the map the number of different sensors, there's ATC and vivacity, for instance, spread across the scheme, across the city. And then why don't I ask a follow-on question? So please add cyclists and pedestrian counts the above location for that day. Okay, so again, it'll go off and it will show us, so we can see it's mentioning the number of some of the different agents it's using, and also the data it's going ahead to retrieve as well, and fetching and doing that. So each of the queries might take a few seconds to run. Generally, they're fairly quick until we get maybe to do very much more deeper analysis, and sometimes it can take a minute or two. Okay, so it's come back, it's added on cyclists and pedestrian data to that as well, which is great. So that's exactly what we're looking for. So let's ask something a bit more detailed. So let's get it to do some analysis for us. So please highlight the factors that could influence this traffic in the above location day. Okay, so it's going off, looking through, and so a number of different sources. Here it's looking through roadworks, traffic events that we've talked about earlier in the areas of the slide, points of interest, a number of different types of points of interest, looking at the weather data as well. Let's come back with some analysis. So showing us weather conditions for the day, what that's like, roadworks, there was a hazard nearby, it's also a road closure, no traffic accidents that day, and kind of points of interest in terms of that might also affect it as well. So let's ask it to put that in the report. Please create or based on the above data and location. And it'll take a little minute and go off and start generating a report for us. So and then we can that sort of the style of report can be customized as well. So but here's a kind of a simple format. So it's come back and summarized the data we retrieved earlier, some of the analysis, points of interest, and it's giving us a little bit more detail analysis in terms of, so on this day, there's no traffic incidents affecting it, for instance. And so we can use that to give more detailed analysis and generate reports for us, so which is great. We can also do predictions as well. We've got an early kind of stage prediction model in here. So if I ask for, can you tell me the predicted counts for the following day between 3 to 6 p.m. And it's come back and shown us those as well. And then we can view the data, download it, use it, and do further analysis should we need to on that as well. And then just checking on time, I might show one last quick thing. How are we doing for time, Tom? Am I about there?
If you're quick, you can squeeze one more in.
Yep. So I can do things like this. So, for instance, please show me cycle lanes on the map, because this is quite interesting. Oh, I did a typo there. So let's see what happens. So I'll go and quickly do that. So this is to show. So in our code base, for instance, there is nothing that mentions cycle lanes. There's no program, there's no line of code that mentions it. It's the AI agent that is generating the code on the fly to go and retrieve this. And this is just to highlight how quick it is for us to then integrate different data sources and make use of them. So I'll pause there. Sorry for running over a little bit there. I'll hand back to you, Tom. Thanks.
No, that's great. Thanks, Parker. That's really, really interesting. It's great when you see data come to life in terms of kind of visuals. It always makes it feel a bit more real. There are questions coming through, but in the interest of allowing everyone to get through their slot, we'll come back and do some questions at the end. So Martin, I'll hand over to you. Martin Bell from TFGM is going to talk through the kind of journey they've been on with their data program. So yeah, welcome to the screen, Martin. I will step back.
Hi guys, thank you for having me. Just by way of introduction, I am Martin Bell, the product owner for ticketing and retail at TFGM. Hopefully you can see that. Please shout if you can't. I'm going to try and there we go. Okay, hopefully you can hear me and you can see that. So yeah, product lead for ticketing and specifically for ticketing and retail data. I'm going to talk a little bit about the journey we have been on with regard to bus franchising. I'm not sure exactly who is on the call, but I know that when we look to the call list, it's certainly something that other authorities are looking at and other regions are looking at various stages. So it's obviously worthy of days worth of workshops if people really wish to sit through it, but in the spirit of time, I'll give a brief summary of what we've done here in Greater Manchester. Happy to follow up afterwards. So the B network, for those that aren't aware, the B, it's always worth explaining this, why it's called the B network. The B is a symbol of Manchester and by extension Greater Manchester. So it's a logical choice for the name of the network, chosen by our regional mayor, Andy Burnham. Hopefully many of the authorities and people will be aware of the background of bus franchising and the powers that metro mayors have to franchise the bus network and take it back under public control. But the vision for the B network is to make it easier to get around by modes of transport, not just public transport, but by also other means and active travel. And it's a vision that is supposed to make it targeted and making it more safe and affordable for customers. And as of January the 5th this year, the final piece of the jigsaw, which you see on the right hand side there, the final 50% of the network was franchised into public control and the control of TFGM on behalf of the combined authority. Having started that franchising journey, certainly in terms of the launches in September 23, with a follow-up franchise 30% of the network in March 24. Buses are under our control, and from a retail and customer experience, the customer can now pay using Tap and Go as of about a month ago, 5 weeks ago or so. And our ambitions don't stop there, or the mayor's ambitions rather don't stop there, with a view to bring in commuter train services into the B network by 2028. So a big change, obviously affecting the whole part of the organisation, with millions of miles worth of bus network across 10 local authorities, 720 bus services. You can see all the numbers there, but getting close to 200 million passenger journeys a month. A year even. Loads of depots, lots of staff involved, and lots of big numbers in terms of revenue, and indeed the value of the contracts that were awarded as part of franchising. And from a ticketing and retail perspective, I've checked on the number today. It's well over 1,000 ticket machines, but this is a huge transformation for an organisation in its entirety. We already operated a Metrolink network and had built, in respect to today's conversation, built data solutions that met the needs of that, but the bus patronage dwarfs that of Metrolink, and our responsibilities reflect that as well. So thousands of ticket machines, a brand new app which retail tickets and has its own obviously data points associated to it, new fares and products, contactless retail on bus for both known fare and variable fare journeys now, a new suite of RIDs, and we also had to migrate our Metrolink PayGo service and contactless payment services, as well as our other retail channels, whether they be on stop or online. With that clearly comes a lot of data, and just in terms of stepping back slightly, we were building on something that was already there, and we'd worked with Simvert, in those days known as Crimson, and our sort of journey to where we are today with something which is fit for purpose, best in class sort of solution, has come in less than 10 years, where as a Metrolink organisation, albeit a lot smaller in terms of revenue, still handling tens of millions of revenue effectively on spreadsheets, and our sort of data journey, and it's perhaps one that some of you might be on if you're going into franchising or operational responsibilities yourselves. Our data journey has taken this amount of time, and that has gone from spreadsheets to our in-house proof of concept data warehouse, and what necessitated our migration to something which was more robust and befitting, quite honestly, of an organisation that is a retail operation that needs to take that retail management seriously in terms of how we report and get insights from revenue. But we used the implementation of our contactless PayGo onto our Metrolink tram network as the catalyst to invest in, and you see the sort of technology set we've got beneath there, and we migrated more data over to that platform in the years that followed 2019. And the big change came with the start of the B Network launch, and as I think Tony might be talking about shortly, that didn't start and end in 2023, because it had to sort of phase with our improvements to that B Network retail customer proposition beyond the initial launch, right up to about 3 or 4 weeks ago, where we launched our PayGo on bus network. As we sit here today, our data warehouse, based on those technology sets, is all cloud hosted and is ingesting from numerous sources. It takes in a record of that the organisation relies on for all public transport B Network journeys, certainly those that are tapped on or scanned on onto buses and to trams across the network. It also captures all our sales, and I think authorities such as ourselves who are embarking on franchising need to take seriously the fact that you become a sales organisation who need to reconcile on a daily basis, and report on sales and products, and inform ourselves of what products are working and which ones aren't, which ones are there for inclusivity and how they're performing versus their sort of more commercial products. Our settlement information, which is ensuring that we're getting the money in the bank from our contactless schemes, and making sure that we can manage the debt that might be outstanding, and indeed is outstanding from part of this, from the scheme, and clearly ensuring that that our supplier ecosystem from an operational perspective is also operationally correct, and that we see the money in the bank that we're expecting from the journeys that customers make. So it has every tap to support that, and we are increasingly using the data warehouse to support our revenue leakage reporting, and indeed revenue inspection reporting, which is really our problem now. It used to be Stagecoach's problem if there were people boarding buses without the right ticket, or travelling by just walking past the driver and that kind of thing. These problems are ours now. How we enforce, where we enforce, the services that are problematic, the regions that are problematic are our problem, as opposed to Stagecoach or First or Go Northwest. It is our revenue that we are foregoing, and indeed to an extent the franchised operators, the operators who operate the franchise on our behalf, can be held to account for some of that as well. And increasingly we got customer analysis. So as I described there, in the interest of time, we've got insights across operations, how we use what our patronage is, and how and where we might grow that. Customer and it's obviously the key metric for financials and reporting, and revenue protection. So our data warehouse, without going into too much detail and sort of examples, give us the opportunity to do sort of nice little visuals like this, which tell us about where people, the number of people who travelled on the network last week. So 3.2 million people used the bus network last week, which was unsurprisingly quite increased from the week before, which was Easter, and how that was broken down across our franchised areas, which were on the previous slide. And one of the key things that one of the key metrics we've got at the moment is around Tap and Go, which is the name for our contactless pay-as-you-go. And Monday's journeys on the Tap and Go network were at 93,000. So that's 93,000 people who are using the new scheme, which is great. And that represents 31% of the journey share. So, these are important metrics as we launch new schemes, and we can see how many people are travelling. But of course, we can break that down to see where and when those people are travelling, which gives sort of a more granular view that is more actionable. And this is an example of that, provided. I have to credit him because he's on the call, I think. One of our colleagues a couple of our colleagues, Steve and Adam, who are on the call, who have produced this analysis of where people travel from using our Tap and Go service. So unsurprisingly, across the major routes into the city centre, but it helps us look at that, and clearly helps us look at the analysis to help these schemes become more popular, which is obviously all a big part of making the B network a more obvious choice for customers. And the data really underpins our ability to target customers, and increasingly encouraging people to use the different modes, so both bus and tram. And again, need to credit someone who's on the call, Success, who's done this piece of work, which I won't go into all the detail, but this is now a little bit deeper into the data, and although it's a visual here, but allows us to look at, because we can now identify, albeit anonymized data, of when a customer is traveling and across the modes, we're able to look at how recently and frequently and the value of that customer, with a view to getting a benchmark that we can start to move people from being, as the labels suggest here, loyal customers, from potentially loyal customers to loyal customers, and address those at-risk customers. And where we need to address them, obviously a lot of people use the network when they visit the city region for once and once only. But one of the key things that we've got in our armory now is the ability to nudge behaviours with our B Network app and other channels. So we can tell customers when they're near to the cap, and we can see whether that has a positive influence on their journey patterns. both in that week, capping week, or the following week. How do we improve loyalty with the channels that we've got available is one of our key challenges. And, you know, we're just starting our journey on this, but unless you've got the data there, and you can't do the fancy AI stuff without that capability, without the data on which to do it. So I presume that we might have questions later, but conscious of time.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Martin. That was really, really insightful. Yeah, I think we'll pause and go to Tony, and I'll have questions at the end when you get time. And if not, like I said, we'll follow up and make sure they're addressed. There's clearly been a big journey you've gone on from those data inceptions to getting the value out. And it was great to see that kind of story painted out. So thank you very much. Tony, should we hand to you? I will sidestep off the screen again.
Can you see my screen? Yeah. Okay, yes. Okay, good. I'm just going to go through some lessons that we've learned through the project we've been running. As Martin was explaining, our first engagement with TFGM to help build the data platform was in 2019 with the initial contactless build, where we started to take a lot of those spreadsheets, a lot of those in-house under the stairs type servers that have got data on, and start moving it into a conformed data warehouse. And that allows decisions to be made, and it allows everything to run a lot more smoothly. You start to get into a cadence, into a rhythm of things. But to that point, it is all about time. We started that in 2019, and obviously Bus Franchise, if you remember, the dates on Greater Manchester came in September 2023. There's a lot of planning in that time, but broadly speaking, you need a year or two really just to think about what it is that you want. I noticed one of the questions from Catherine, and I'll leave someone else to cover it better, was about real-time data. Now, whenever you're doing a big data platform project, really you got to get really keyed into the priorities, and the priorities for Greater Manchester weren't at the time to get real-time data management. It was about understanding ticketing, patronage, taps, journeys, those kind of things, so they could afford those to be the previous day. Going forward, I think real-time will become a much bigger priority. But initially, you're more likely to want to know about how your ticketing is going, how your fare retail ticketing is going. You'll want to know about what happened yesterday, what's going to happen tomorrow. Will be something you can kind of work out, and over time, you'll be wanting to move on to a journey where you're doing real time. But it might be that the priorities are to make sure that you're selling the right tickets and those kind of things, rather than trying to do everything on day one. I think, as you can see also from Martin's timeline, we launched the first tranche of Bus Franchising in September 23. We're looking to integrate rail into the tap and go later this year or next year, depending on the timeline. So it's not going to be a case of the project ever really finishes. There's whatever's the priorities are worked on, and we move forward with them. But they're a movable feast. So I'm just going to go through some key lessons learned. Obviously, time's a great thing. If we all had more time, we could get more things done. But one of the key aspects of time is prioritization. And so if real time is your big priority, then that's fine, knowing about what's going on right now. But from our experience with Data Manchester, I'd suggest that as you transition local authority transport companies into being retail companies, you'll want to know more about revenues and patronage before you start to address real-time transport, I'd say. In terms of the left-hand side of any data pipeline that's going to be building your data platforms, a lot of the providers that you'll deal with, whether they're sending contactless data, whether they're sending ticketing data, whether you're getting where all your geographical locations are, financial data, performance data, whatever it is a lot of third parties will provide you with a data dictionary and little more, and you have to really try to push for more than that, because oftentimes when providers are providing either a CSV or an Excel or an API to hit something, they're often not the most mature data products. A lot of the time, what we're working with in transport data is companies that are whose key focus is selling their products and selling tickets and selling transport journeys. What their key focus is providing consistent data that supports that. So you have to really work with them to make sure that their maturity grows along with the process. And it's sometimes difficult to expect that a third party who's providing you with, I don't know, bus timetable information is going to get the data right every time to start with, but over time you can work with them to help them mature that on that basis. So for every pipeline, you need to try to understand. With the B network, there's around 80 pipelines now, so 80 sources of information. A lot of them are internal to CFGM. Lots of them are transactional from the likes of Ticketer and VIX, and other ones. There's shops. There's a mobile app. There's data coming in from lots of different places. Some of it's coming in every few minutes. Some of it's coming in every day. Some of it's coming in periodically. Some of it's about sales. Some of it's about performance. It's about finances. There's lots of different things. So you've got to really look to document every pipeline and make sure that you know when you're expecting it, how big it's going to be, what the structure of it is, what individual parts of it, what you're expecting to get in it. There's stuff like if the file comes in is empty, is that okay or is it not okay? How do you report these things back to third party? How do you report these things back to TFGM? On the next slide, I'll go through some of the answers that we've come up with in order to help that process. Broadly speaking, I'd suggest that because data isn't always a key component in setting deadlines, if the mayor of a local area says we're going to go live with bus franchise on this date, there isn't really a data professional who's going to be able to say, well, we're not going to be ready, or we are going to be ready, and it's going to make any difference really to that timescale. So it's a case of prioritization. What you need at the local authority level, when you're dealing with either consultancy building your platform, or you're dealing with your third parties, or even your internal teams at your authority, you need a strong product owner like Martin, and you need also a team that sits centrally, that is able to deal with all these outlying pipelines, third parties, internal teams, government teams, internal stakeholders that may have different demands on your time, whatnot. And you'll probably need a product owner, a product manager, a business analyst, a tester, and probably a data analyst as a core team that's simply going to coordinate all these other strands. So if bus data is coming in, if ticketing data, if contactless data is coming in, if you're getting NatTan data about where your bus stops are, or where your rail stations are, those kind of things. A core team at the local authority that both liaises with whoever you get to build your data platform, and that could be an internal team or it could be a consultancy. I suggest that they would be different teams, and then you'll have a whole range of other teams that they're kind of fronting your capability with. You'll need a flexible data partner, and I'd suggest that this core team liaises with them at least once a day, maybe many times a day, to make sure that everything's on track and build up a cadence and a velocity so that the project runs smoothly. Probably that team would also have a project manager that is an account manager that's liaising with the product owner and the project manager at the local authority side, which should then liaises further out. If that's a bit complicated, I'm happy to dig a little deeper into how that works. One of the other parts, if I look at it from the right hand side of the data platform landscape, pipelines being on the left, and what you get out the other end being on the right. Oftentimes, either internal teams or internal stakeholders, especially senior stakeholders, will simply say, we want all the data. We don't really want to think about how we're going to use the data. We just want it all, and we'll work it out as we get there. But unless you know the reasons why data is needed, Martin had a lot of great graphs there that said, how many bus journeys we yesterday. That's a great use case. we need to be able to say how many bus journeys were yesterday, what proportion of journeys are by bus and by tram, what in performance data, you know, how late, how many buses are late at bus stations, you know, how many buses don't turn up, those kind of things. So people do kind of know what their reporting requirements are. They do want to know what they want from the data. Oftentimes they don't always want to say it, but you've really got to push back on that. And as a core team that's running a bus franchising program, you've got to know from all your major stakeholders what it is that they want from the data, because that in essence defines how you're going to model the data, at what grain it's going to be at. So it's pointless somebody asking for a deep granular information if you've modeled it a step or two higher, and you only really model it based on what you know the users are going to want to get out of that data. So you got to be quite pushy in terms of getting use cases, reporting requirements, understanding status, workflow, flow charting, and those kind of things. This also will reduce scope creep, because getting in all the data and just fire hosing it all into your data warehouse is one thing. But that just leaves people open to saying, well, as I've never said what my reporting requirements are, they can be anything now. And that doesn't make for good prioritization. It doesn't make for good planning or good project management. I'm probably running out of time, I think. How am I doing for time, Tom?
You can have a few more minutes. Go for it, Tony.
I'll just spin through. The key areas about the things you should expect from third parties and internal teams at the back of the project, and what reporting challenges are at the front of the project. I could go through all kinds of stuff about project management and agile Scrum and all those kind of things, but I'm not gonna bother with that. I'm just gonna try to cope with the key transport messages. One of the things we're doing with Transport for Greater Manchester in the next year will be to bring in rail, as this gentleman on the right, showing journeys into the mix, so that people will be able to tap on a train, tap on a tram, tap on a bus, or tap off and various things, and all those journeys will be settled up overnight and brought in through the contactless data. So you got to assume that once you start down the road of a multimodal transport system, you know, trains, buses, trams, ferries, bike hire, whatever it is, there's going to be more of it. Active travel, as and I think one or two of the comments we made, is a real hot topic in terms of making sure that's accountable for. And then how do you model that? But how do you model that? What is it you say? You don't have a kind of a ticketing interaction, so you're going to be working more on more holistic measures. So how does that model, and how do you compare it? So how would you put along pedestrians data alongside bus travel data? How would you join those grains together? Where would your modeling be? It's not easy, but you can't assume the scope is limited to what's currently possible. So allow your modeling to grow and expand as you go. Future-proof your projects. When we started off on the B network, the big part of it was ticketing and revenue, because as Martin explained, the transition from being a public service transport provider to being a retail organisation that sells £500 million worth of product every year isn't to be underestimated. But beyond that point, your finance team is going to get really interested in a lot of what you do, a lot more interested than they've ever been. And then you're going to want to move into stuff beyond ticketing, inspections, enforcement. Are you going to want a mobile app? Are you going to want to join up with cycle schemes? And are you going to have shops selling tickets? Are you going to do this? There's so much more to coordinate. You know, lost kilometers, performance metrics. I know Adam and Steve on it. They do a lot of that. There's so many areas that you will just suddenly open up and bloom out into, that you got to keep your initial project tight and deliverable. And often cases with the B network and other systems before then, If a third party provided a back office showing operational data, and this again cuts back to what Catherine was saying, where third parties offer operational data, you're going to have to lean into it. You're not going to be able to get all your data in the first hit or in the first year or in the second year, even maybe not even in the third year, into your data warehouse, into your platform. You're still going to be using operational data from other areas, and you're gradually going to want to onboard that where it's appropriate, where it's cost effective, and where it adds value. So again, that comes back to building out the right reporting requirements and use cases to say that if we had this information and we're able to join it to this, we're going to be able to save this much money, because we're going to be able to say we need a new route here, or we can add a new type of ticket here because there's this new type of customer, and those kind of things. I can see my time's running out here. We build roadmaps, and we build roadmaps every few months. We rewrite them every few months, and they're never stable. Roadmaps are plans, and they're estimates. But when you're dealing with the data, you're really at the far end of the decision-making process. So if a local authority decides to go with one contactless operator, and then the next year goes with another one, your whole roadmap's going to change, because that's going to dominate the next year. If they decide that there's a strategic reality that needs to come in, whatever you planned previously, going through all the shared information with the paired up partner teams between the data platform builder and the local authority management team that I explained a little earlier. That's probably a good idea. So I would always plan to just keep building your roadmap and keep expecting it not to survive contact with the enemy. What will survive contact with the enemy is your mayoral milestones. They're always bang on. You'll hit those. But what comes into it then is a case of a negotiation on priorities and those kind of things. I think I'm going to leave it there. I can talk all day about this. Don't worry about it. But I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop there and hand back to Tom.
Perfect. Thanks, Tony. That was really insightful, like the other talks. There's a question that was asked earlier, which came to my mind when you were talking. So I think you and Martin both talked about the journey and getting the data in priority. And I think it was asked Barclay when you were talking. So I'm going to bring Barclay. I'm going to bring you back into the screen, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
The question was around to what extent do you still need high quality data management underneath? And I think this was in relation to Traffease and the AI product suite. And obviously we've had Martin and Tony talk about the journey all the way through. So it'd be interesting, I think, to get your perspective from everyone's talking about AI, agentic AI, and how it's used and how that relates to underlying data quality. And I don't know if it's possible to make it real with Simon around Nottingham, but I know we've only got a minute, so apologies for the short time scale.
Not at all. Yes. So the short answer is yes. There's still a benefit of having high quality data underneath. The agentic AI does help there. It's not quite as simple as bad data in kind of bad analysis type thing. But so essentially, it can help with data cleansing as well. For instance, data standardization. So it can provide a kind of assistance there. So you do get efficiencies in that, but essentially, the more the better kind of underneath pinning in the tool, you've got a high quality data set, then the less you have to do on top of that, essentially. So that is a fair point to make.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's great to hear. And I guess that ties into what Simon was talking about getting the data sorted and then kind of driving the AI use cases afterwards, which is similar. I think it's important to tie those two together, right? There's the explosion of AI and agentic AI and what's happening, and there's the age-old challenge around data quality and management. And I think it's like you were saying, there's the ability to use one to improve the other, but also to kind of go on that journey. Thank you very much. Yeah, really interesting. Right, so I think we are at or very close to approaching the hour. There are some questions that haven't been answered, so we'll write these up and we'll share them out to everybody. So kind of just leaves me to say thank you very much to all the presenters. Thank you to Simon, Barclay. Thank you, Martin and Tony. And hi to Al. I know you haven't been able to speak, but you've been active in the background, and Georgia, and there's many people that make it successful. So thank you. Thank you to everyone that's attended. Hopefully you've got some real insight and value from what we've been talking about. So the questions and answers will come out. We'll follow up afterwards. We'll just double back with all presenters and check we can share any slides and different bits that were presented, and hopefully get those out too. So from us at Simvert, it's a thank you. I'm also going to give you, for those that haven't heard of Simvert and are going to be looking for us in the future, in about a month we're rebranding. I'm just going to put it out, right? So at some point you'll see Simvert changed to Manuka AI as our new company name, and that's to reflect our heritage of being headquartered in Manchester, and being born out of Manchester and the bee and Manuka honey. And so we're going to rebrand to launch our company. So that will be coming at the end of May. And if anyone's looking for us beyond that and where's Simvert TCM gone, we're Manuka AI, but data and AI services company. But it's been great hosting this. Thank you again to all the presenters, and thank you to the attendees. Thank you very much.
Thank you.